I got pregnant during Ramadan and I felt so guilty about not fasting. People were asking me why I wasn't at iftar with everyone.
That guilt is so common. But here's the thing, you weren't actually supposed to fast.
Exactly, but nobody talks about this. People act like fasting is non-negotiable, like there's no Islamic allowance for anything else.
The Quran actually addresses this directly, and it's a conversation we need to have.
Let's talk about it. Welcome to Talk, Learn, Teach.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Talk, Learn, Teach. I'm Malik, and this is my co-host, Noor. We want to start by asking something important. If you're not fasting this Ramadan for a legitimate reason, please listen to this episode. And if you have friends or family dealing with this situation, share this with them. Fasting exemptions are a mercy from Allah, not a shame. Subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach so you get content like this whenever it drops. And if this episode helps you, please share it. Sharing helps us reach people who need to hear that they don't have to feel guilty.
And we genuinely want to hear from you. Comment below about your experience. Are you traveling? Are you pregnant? Are you dealing with an illness? Tell us your story. Let's build a community where people understand that Islam is merciful, not punishing.
So let's start with the foundation. The Quran explicitly addresses this. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 184 and 185, Allah lays out the rules about who doesn't have to fast. But most people haven't actually read these verses carefully.
Right. People just know the general rule, you fast in Ramadan, and forget there are exceptions. The Quran says fasting is for a fixed number of days, and if one of you be sick or if one of you be on a journey, you will fast the same number of other days later on. That's verse 184. Then verse 185 emphasizes, whoever is sick or on a journey should fast the same number of other days instead.
The word instead is important. The Quran isn't saying these people are weak or not dedicated. It's saying don't fast right now, but fast later. It's a postponement, not a cancellation.
And then verse 185 adds something beautiful. It says, Allah intends ease for you, not hardship, so that you may complete the prescribed period and proclaim the greatness of Allah for guiding you, and perhaps you will be grateful. That's literally Allah saying, I don't want hardship for you.
So who exactly gets an exemption? Let's break it down because there's confusion here.
The Quran mentions several categories that have exemptions. First, the sick. But this doesn't mean any cold or minor illness. Islamic scholars carefully define sickness as an illness that causes what they call an unbearable hardship if you attempt to fast, or creates reasonable concern that fasting would significantly worsen your medical condition. If you have the flu with a high fever, if you're dealing with intense pain, if you're severely fatigued from illness, these are legitimate reasons not to fast. If you have a chronic condition like diabetes that becomes medically risky when you fast, or heart disease that's compromised by the physical stress of fasting, or kidney problems where fasting could cause complications, these are all exemptions. The standard Islamic jurisprudence is clear. If fasting creates risk to your health, you shouldn't fast.
So what counts as unbearable hardship?
Basically, if fasting causes you significant physical or medical distress beyond normal hunger and thirst are expected in Ramadan. That's part of the spiritual practice. But if you're experiencing severe symptoms that fasting causes or worsens, that's when the exemption applies. A person with diabetes who fasts despite their condition could face dangerously low or high blood sugar. That's not an acceptable hardship to endure. A person with severe dehydration issues or migraines triggered by fasting. These are medical realities, not excuses. Right. Islamic scholars established that for travel to count as an exemption, you need to leave your home on a journey of approximately 80 kilometers or more, about 50 miles. And it needs to be an actual journey where you've embarked on travel, not just popping to a nearby city for the day. The principle is that you're disrupted from your normal routine significantly.
So, what if someone travels but is staying in one place, like you travel to visit family for 2 weeks?
Then, for those 2 weeks, you can break your fast because you're still in a state of travel. But here's the important part. Once you decide to settle somewhere for 15 days, you're no longer considered a traveler. You become a resident of that place for the duration, and fasting becomes obligatory again.
So it's about intention and duration.
Exactly. The scholars are precise about this. If you arrive in a city on the 1st of Ramadan intending to stay for the entire month, you're not a traveler. You should fast. But if you're passing through or genuinely traveling, you can break the fast and make it up later.
Now, let's talk about something that's completely understandable but often not discussed: pregnant and breastfeeding women.
This is where I think the gap between Islamic teaching and community practice is widest. The Quran doesn't explicitly say pregnant women are exempt, but the tafsir, the scholarly explanation of the Quran, unanimously agrees that pregnant and nursing women fall under the same category as the sick because they face genuine hardship and potential harm.
Potential harm to whom, though?
That's crucial. Pregnant women can face dehydration, weakness, dizziness, and complications. Breastfeeding women can experience a decrease in milk supply. These are not minor concerns. They can affect the health of both the mother and the baby. So scholars say if a pregnant or nursing woman fears for her health or her baby's health, she can break the fast. She must make up the days later, but she's not obligated to fast while pregnant or nursing if it creates risk.
But I've known women who force themselves to fast while pregnant because they feel obligated.
And that's exactly the problem. The Quran says Allah intends ease for you, not hardship. A pregnant woman forcing herself to fast, despite weakness and risk, is creating hardship that Allah explicitly didn't intend. She should break the fast, nourish herself and her baby, and make it up later. There's no sin in that. There's wisdom in that.
What about the elderly? I've seen elderly people trying to fast when they clearly can't physically handle it.
The scholars note that elderly people who genuinely cannot endure fasting have a concession from Allah. If an elderly person's health is seriously compromised by fasting, if they become dangerously weak or unwell, if their chronic conditions flare up dangerously, they don't have to fast at all during Ramadan. Instead, for each day they don't fast, they feed one poor person, either by providing food or by giving money equivalent to a meal. This is explicitly mentioned in the Quran when it addresses those who can fast with difficulty. Elderly people with age-related health issues often fall into this category. This is a concession, not a failure.
So, fasting has an actual physical limit where it becomes harmful?
Absolutely. Islam never ever asks you to harm yourself in the name of worship. The Prophet explicitly taught that your body has rights upon you, the right to health, nourishment, rest. Breaking a fast to preserve your health isn't weakness or lack of faith, it's wisdom. It's recognizing and respecting the physical limits that Allah set on your body. For example, someone with uncontrolled high blood pressure might face serious health risks from fasting. Someone with kidney disease might face complications. Someone with certain cancers undergoing treatment needs nutrition. These aren't excuses, they're medical realities that Islam accommodates with mercy.
Now, what about someone who breaks the fast? What are their obligations?
This is where qada comes in. Qada means making up the missed fasts. If you're sick during Ramadan and can't fast, once you recover, you fast those days later. The Quran is very clear about this principle. Fast the same number of other days instead. But here's the mercy in the system. You don't necessarily have to fast immediately after Ramadan ends. You can fast the missed days anytime throughout the year before the next Ramadan arrives.
So it's not this intense rush to make up all the fasts immediately after Ramadan.
No, thankfully not. The Quran and the Prophet's teachings show remarkable flexibility in this area. If you missed 10 days of fasting because of illness, you can make them up scattered throughout the year. You could fast one makeup day here, one there, taking your time. The requirement is simply that by the time the next Ramadan arrives, you've completed all the days you missed. Life happens, illnesses last, recoveries take time, emergencies arise. Islam recognizes this reality and accommodates it.
But what if someone doesn't make it up before the next Ramadan arrives?
Then it becomes more complicated, admittedly. If someone delays making up their fasts and the next Ramadan actually arrives before they've caught up, most scholars agree you should fast the current Ramadan while also making up the previous year's missed days. You can do this either by fasting extra days after each day of Ramadan or by continuing to make up days after Ramadan ends. Additionally, you might need to give Fidya, feed a poor person for each delayed day, as compensation for the delay. The ideal scenario is to make them up before the next Ramadan, but Islam recognizes that life isn't always ideal.
Is there ever a situation where you don't have to make up the fasts?
Yes, if someone passes away before they can make up the fasts, those fasts are forgiven. The Quran indicates that qada fasts are only obligatory while the person lives. If someone was sick, couldn't fast, then died before recovering and making up the fasts, there's no sin on them. Their family doesn't have to fast on their behalf either.
That's merciful. Now, what about someone who breaks the fast unnecessarily? Like they could fast but choose not to.
That's different. If you're able to fast, you're not sick, not traveling, not pregnant, not nursing, but you break the fast anyway, you must make it up. And for intentionally breaking a valid fast, there's additional repentance involved. But again, this is only if you break a fast you should have kept.
So the responsibility depends on whether the breaking was legitimate or not.
Exactly. If you break the fast with a legitimate reason, you make it up. If you break it without a reason, you make it up and seek forgiveness. Islam distinguishes between the two.
Let's talk about travel practically. Someone's flying during Ramadan. When do they start being exempt?
The scholars have nuanced rules. Generally, once you leave your home to embark on a journey, you can break the fast. But some scholars say you should complete the fast of the day you're leaving if you haven't already left when it became fasting time. It's not cut and dry. Different schools of Islamic jurisprudence have slightly different rules. The safest approach is to consult with a knowledgeable imam or scholar. But generally, if you're traveling significant distances, you have the flexibility to break the fast.
What about mental health? Can depression or anxiety be a reason not to fast?
This is increasingly discussed among contemporary Islamic scholars, and I think it's important. Severe mental health conditions that are significantly exacerbated by fasting, like clinical anxiety disorder that worsens with hunger and stress, or clinical depression that is deeply triggered by physical stress and weakness, can potentially fall under legitimate exemption reasons. However, and this is important, this needs to be carefully determined with professional medical and religious guidance. Someone having a difficult emotional day is different from someone with a diagnosed, documented condition that is genuinely worsened by fasting. The key principle is consulting professionals, both medical doctors and Islamic scholars, not just deciding on your own.
So it's not a free-for-all where anyone can claim mental hardship to escape fasting.
Absolutely not. It needs to be a genuine, diagnosed condition documented by a healthcare provider that confirms fasting would be harmful to your mental health. Islam teaches honesty in our intentions and in our dealings with Allah. We can't just claim hardship to avoid fasting when we're actually just being lazy or don't want the challenge. That violates the spirit of Ramadan and our contract with Allah. But for those with genuine, documented medical or psychological conditions that fasting actively worsens, there absolutely is mercy in Islamic teaching. The Prophet was clear that your health is a sacred trust.
Now, here's something people don't talk about enough: the emotional side of this.
Yes, some people feel ashamed when they can't fast. They see everyone else at iftar, everyone fasting, and they feel like failures.
That's heartbreaking because the Quran is giving them permission to rest.
How do you address that shame?
By understanding that Islam is merciful. The Quran doesn't say fasting is better than breaking the fast when you need to. It says fasting is better when you're able. When you're not able, breaking the fast is the right choice. Fasting when you'll harm yourself is actually disobeying the Quranic instruction to not create hardship for yourself. There's no shame in obeying Allah.
That's powerful. So someone pregnant or sick or traveling should feel peace about breaking the fast.
Absolutely. They should feel peace and gratitude. They're being given mercy. They don't have to suffer. And they still get to be part of Ramadan spiritually. They can do dua, read Quran, give charity, spend time with family. Fasting is one form of worship, not the only form.
Before we finish, are there any other exemptions we should mention?
One more. Some scholars mention women during their menstrual cycle. This is explicit in Islamic teaching. Women don't fast during menstruation. They break the fast and make it up later. This isn't an exemption people debate, it's clear Islamic teaching. But I mention it because women sometimes feel ashamed about this too. The Quran and Prophet's teaching are clear that this is how it should be.
Thank you for bringing that up. It's important to normalize these conversations. There's nothing unclean or wrong about menstruation. It's just a biological reality, and Islam accommodates it.
Exactly. Islam is a practical religion. It understands bodies, health, and life circumstances. It doesn't demand the impossible.
So if someone's watching this and they're not fasting for a legitimate reason, what's your message?
Don't feel guilty. You're not lazy or weak or lacking in faith. You're obeying Allah's mercy and wisdom. Fast when you can, but when you can't for legitimate reasons, break the fast with a peaceful heart, knowing that you're following Quranic guidance. Make up the days when you're able and healthy. Seek Allah's forgiveness for whatever you need forgiveness for. And remember, Ramadan is about so much more than just abstaining from food. It's about spiritual growth, moral development, getting closer to Allah, and strengthening your relationship with Him. You can achieve all of that even if you're not fasting physically.
And to people around anyone who isn't fasting, if someone you know isn't fasting, don't judge them. Don't ask them why. Don't make them explain or defend their choice. Trust that they know their situation better than you do.
The Quran doesn't ask us to police each other's fasting. It asks us to be merciful and understanding. It teaches us compassion. The Prophet said the best of Muslims are those who are best to their families, best to their communities, best in character. Sometimes that means understanding why your neighbor or your friend or your family member can't fast.
That's such an important reminder. Thank you so much for this conversation, Noor. I think people listening are going to feel so much more at peace about their situations.
I hope so. That's my goal, to help people understand that Islam doesn't punish, it provides mercy. Allah created Ramadan as a blessing for our spiritual growth, not as a source of guilt and shame. Use this month wisely, whether you're fasting or not.
Please subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach. We create content that addresses real situations Muslims face every day, and we do it with genuine compassion and authentic Quranic guidance. Subscribe so you never miss episodes like this one. And please comment below, share your experiences, your questions, your thoughts. Let's create a community where people feel understood, supported, and not judged for circumstances beyond their control.
Yes, and if you've navigated this situation, if you've been pregnant during Ramadan or dealt with serious illness or been traveling, tell us your story. How did you handle it? What would you tell others going through the same thing? Your experience matters and helps people who are struggling right now feel less alone.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Remember, Islam is fundamentally a religion of mercy and ease. Allah created Ramadan as a blessing for our spiritual growth, not as a source of guilt and shame. Use this month wisely, whether you're fasting or not.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get our new episodes. We'll see you in the next one.